The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
As Jesus got into a boat, his disciples followed him. Suddenly, a violent storm came up on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by waves. But he was asleep. They came and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us. We are perishing." He said to them, "Why are you terrified, O you of little faith?" Then he got up, rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was great calm. The men were amazed and said, "What sort of man is this, whom even the winds and the sea obey?" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Please be seated.
During one pilgrimage to the Holy Land, this is one activity, one exciting activity that they do, that they offer to pilgrims or tourists. And that is to get on a boat and go to Lake Galilee and experience for oneself that kind of, being in that boat on the lake, just exactly the way Jesus was and his disciples. So for some, it's a very dramatic moment. In our group before, we were even oriented that at the middle of the lake, the engine of the boat will be turned off. So there will be total silence. And we will read this gospel. And people will get to share with one another spiritual insights. So we were expecting that. So we did that. We got into the boat, and the boat went to the lake. And at the middle of the lake, the engine of the boat was turned off. But there was no silence, because there were other boats, and there were other Christians in other boats. And some Christians were Pentecostals, and they were actually singing and dancing on the boat, while our group, the Catholic group, were meditating and were trying to keep silence. Anyway, that was the Lake Galilee experience. And when the boat docked, we were served fish. I see this fish also here. In the Philippines, we call it tilapia. It's biasa. It's ordinary fish. But it's supposed to be a very special fish there because it's St. Peter's fish. It costs $12 per fish. It's very expensive. But tourism aside, or these expectations that are unmet aside, what is it that we learn in the gospel today? St. Thomas, I was looking at the commentary of St. Thomas on Aristotle's physics to be able to understand just one word, place. It was for a different purpose. It was for a different meeting. But incidentally, it is useful to explain the gospel experience and the gospel message. It seems that everyone here, everything is out of place. Only Jesus is in place. Everything is not in its proper place. There was a violent storm. There is so much movement all around. In fact, there's turbulence all around. The movement of the waters, the movement of the sea, the movement of the wind was there. And not only that, there was also the psychological movement going on in terms of the emotions of the disciples. They were feeling terrified. In fact, Jesus, who was peacefully sleeping, they woke him up. They had to. They were practically, I don't know if they were praying of their, "Lord, save us, we are perishing." They're just frantic. They had to wake the sleeping Lord. But then, when Jesus woke up, he stopped the storm. He calmed the sea. He stopped the waves, and the winds obeyed him. And that was the moment when they were amazed. It seems to me that the amazement is the same as the fear. The magnitude of the fear is the same as the amazement. They were practically not healed. They were still in motion. Only Jesus was perfectly calm. This gospel allows us to understand that when we say Jesus in his proper place, Jesus is unmoved. Jesus is not affected by any movement of the world, by any movement of the universe. Why? Because the same gospel tells us he has the power to rebuke the winds and the sea. The winds and the sea obey him. Why? Because Jesus is also the mover. So we have here an unmoved Jesus. But at the same time, Jesus who has the power to move everything. Jesus who was sleeping, and yet because Jesus was totally possessed of himself, of infinity, of the infinite power of the God who made the universe. Jesus sleeping in his humanity, but at the same time, Jesus commanding, deploying his divinity. So when we are met with a story on the boat, there's really more than just tourism into it. Or there's really just more than the emotionalism that we invest so much into the fear of perishing, or the wonder or of rebuking the winds and the sea. There is here the person of the Lord who is introduced to us in the gospel as somebody who has perfect control, because he is a man like us, but he is not a man like us. He is God. And so when we receive the Lord in the Holy Eucharist today, we ask the Lord to also stop our fears, to rebuke our doubts, and to call us once more to faith, to a life of faith wherein the troubles of this world, whatever movements that we have in our own personal daily existences, may not trouble us so as that we lose faith in the Lord who wakes up to rebuke the winds and the sea, and they obey him.